Hello, everybody. My name is Gabby, and I will be your MC today. Thank you so much for attending the Senator's Annual Pride Press Conference. So, the theme for today is keeping and creating safe spaces in the LGBT community. We've invited a group of different orgs and stakeholders to come that fall under this theme, and they will be speaking to the topics of mental health with Chicago Therapy Collective and Rayo Clinic, physical health with AIDS Foundation Chicago and TPAN. And then lastly, speaking on safety for youth and creating safe spaces will be spoken by Senator Halstead's Lavender Levy program and Brave Space Lions. This event, I cannot stress, is needed now more than ever, and this whole panel will be about 15 minutes per those three, with each group having about 4 to 7 minutes to speak on their respective topics. Do-Young, our intern in the back, will raise a 30-second sign to let you know when to wrap things up so then we can move along. And it is now exciting and time for me to introduce Senator Simmons.
Give it up one more time for Gabby Tuodros. What she didn't mention is she holds it down as the outreach coordinator for our district office. And so she put all of this together so seamlessly. Thank you so much for the organizational genius. It took to, I think this is the 5th, 21, 22, 23, 24. This is the 5th year that we have pulled together the Pride Press Conference. I'm State Senator Mike Simmons. I represent the 7th District, which covers Edgewater, Uptown, Rogers Park, Lincoln Square, North Center, and Lakeview. And I am the first and openly LGBTQ person elected to serve in the Illinois Senate. And thank you. And you know, I'm really not somebody that dwells on the first of anything, because the way I think about it is that if I'm going to be the first, then let's like hit reset on the whole thing. And so in 2021, that's why we started organizing these Pride Press Conferences, because it's not a press conference in the sense of reporters coming and asking gotcha questions and politicians just saying a bunch of canned statements. That's just like so not on brand for what we do in this office. What we really like to do is to give the mic over to the people. Give the mic over to people to talk about what's happening in the streets, what's happening in the communities. And we know that right now, if it was true in 2021 that queer populations have a lot to say, it's even triple the case in 2025 that our communities have to be at the forefront of talking about what's happening in our communities. We can't wait on somebody else or a savior to come in and talk about what mental health looks like for queer youth, or to predict which next school board is going to ban a book by an LGBTQ author, or who the next social media troll is going to be that trolls me on social media for being an openly out and proud LGBTQ state senator, or any of you here. So thank you so much for making this an institution, showing up in force, having so many people here to make this a long time legacy in the 7th District and beyond. I'm really excited about this year's Pride Press Conference because we've really tried to change it up every year. The first year, it was mostly electives, just reflecting on the state of the LGBTQ population and the community in the state. 2 years ago, we shifted the model and gave the mic over to young people, and we had the beautiful panel last year and the year before where the young people talked and reflected, and we didn't give them scripts. We let them just say what they need to say. So many of our young people just need to say what's on their hearts without a whole lot of editing or a whole lot of window dressing. I really believe that that's important. And then this year, we're really going to give the mic over to our frontline workers who are in these community-based organizations, such as Chicago Therapy Collective, such as Senator Halstead, Rayo, and so many other organizations that are here with us today to talk about the work that they do. And it just is the most important work right now for LGBTQ populations of all ages. You know, I remember when I was in high school, you know, as a gay youth at a Catholic high school was very hard. And, you know, I actually was just meeting with a young person in my office yesterday who's being bullied and being called gay, and his mother was in tears. And the first thing I thought about is how my mom was in tears when this happened to me when I was a young person. So this continues to happen in our communities. And the message I have for our young people is that if I could be standing here as a state senator, imagine what our young people can do. Literally what I'm doing is literally the tip of the iceberg for what our queer youth are going to do and can do in their lifetimes. And so we're going to kick that work off today. We're going to make sure that they feel this love that we have for them, the love that the community has for them, no matter what folks are saying in the media, no matter what politicians get elected to decide to target them because they lack ideas and they lack imagination for their communities. That is what this is about. And so I couldn't be prouder to be a part of that. not as a leader of this, but in community with you all to do this great work and bring it to fruition. Finally, I just want to say thank you to Gerber Hart for every year I stand up here and talk about how much, just how much love I have for books and reading. Books and readings really were a big part of what helped me when I was a teenager and didn't have access to therapy and didn't have access to mental health. I just sat down and I read James Baldwin and Audre Lorde and all these people, and I said, oh, that's what I'm going through. That's what this is. And there were people a generation or two ago who went through a similar set of circumstances, and that is what gave me my power. And so I just have to say thank you to Gerber Hart for this library and making this space available, not just to LGBTQIA populations, but the whole community. The largest collection of queer books and media in the Midwest. It's a gem, a hidden gem here in our community. Yeah, please give them some love. So to Michael Rashid and the staff here at this library, we love you so much. We're gonna always support you, and we know that you'll be here for another 1,000 years plus. So I'm gonna give it back over to Gabby now, and then we'll kick off the program. Thank you for being here, everybody.
Okay, and now I'm going to kick it over to Erin Bell, Executive Director of Gerber Hart, to make some welcoming remarks.
Good morning. Oh, I guess it's afternoon now, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Erin. I use she, her pronouns. And yes, thank you again so much. We're so excited to have y'all here today. It's very heartwarming to see everybody in the space. As was mentioned before, Gerber Hart is the largest independent nonprofit LGBTQ+ library and archives representing Chicago and the Midwest. We are completely free and open to the public. Anybody can come in during our open hours. Anybody can come and use our resources for research, learn about our history. And for many of us coming here and volunteering or being staff or just exploring library, this is our first chance to learn about Chicago's rich queer history and our place in queer history. Over the last few years, I think for Gerber Hart, it's been very important for us to, in addition to advertising our library, promoting our library and our archives as a repository and a place for folks to donate or for folks to come and find books that are being banned, we also want to be a community space. We want to be a place where folks can come and have queer crafting nights and do book clubs and have meetings and just come and chill and have a place to relax, to take a break, to read, to have a quiet space, to be with friends and to be with community. And that's certainly something that I see all the time with our volunteers. And then it's so wonderful when I see groups of people coming in, especially Saturday afternoons when I know there's so many other things vying for our attention and time, to come into the library and to spend time just with friends around books and history. So thank you so much, and I'm gonna give the mic back. Thank you.
And now I would like to welcome staff from our local elected offices to come up and give welcoming remarks, and then we will kick it off to our panels. If I could have
Hi, my name is Audrey. I'm here representing 48th Ward Alderwoman Lenny Mana Hoppenworth, and she gave me a statement she would like me to read on her behalf. So she says, "Pride is a protest, and it's also a time to acknowledge our past. The assault on our trans siblings has been in place for decades. It's not new. And as the first out person to represent the 48th Ward, I'm fighting every day to keep Edgewater a sanctuary ward in this sanctuary city, in this sanctuary state. We know that their tactic is to divide us like they tried to do at the Edgewater Library only days ago. MAGA came for us with their hats, signs, and video cameras, but the 48th Ward showed up with family, trans up front, small business owners, friends of the library, neighbors, and allies. We'll do it again and again in our communities and at the ballot box. Trans siblings, we see you and we love you." So that's a message from Alderwoman Lenny Mana Hoppenworth, and she also told me to riff a little. So what I will say about that is that on my very first day working for Lenny 2 years ago, I came to this event. And our political situation has changed quite a bit since then, but our values have not. And queer people and queer communities We show up for each other and we protect each other, especially when it gets difficult and especially when it becomes unpopular. And I feel really grateful to live in a city where we have elected officials doing that work alongside us.
Hi everyone, my name is Abby Huynh. I'm the Constituent Services Director for State Representative Han Nguyen. He's not able to make it today, but I'm here on his behalf and he sends his regards and would like to wish everyone a happy Pride Month. We serve the 13th House District here in the state of Illinois. And we're dedicated to fostering a safe and inclusive space for all of our communities. We're here to listen to you and to make sure that we're protecting our state during a time like this. So thank you so much for having us.
Good afternoon. I'm Josina Morita, the Cook County Commissioner of the 13th District here. Precious, I didn't see you in front. I just, want to say I hope that you all feel here in Cook County that we are doing everything that we can to fight back, hold the line, create safe spaces, increase funding, protect, gender affirming care. We're proud. Our board has become incredibly diverse. I'm the first Asian American. We have Kevin. We just lost Anthony, unfortunately, and have Maggie as our LGBT caucus. And we're all constantly working together to hold the line to protect each of our respective communities as we see attacks on the LGBT community, the trans community, all of our communities at this time. We have a very diverse district. This is almost the southern point of our district. We go all the way up to Evanston, Morton Grove, Lincolnwood. We have our queer council that's been created. If I was gonna say one thing about an ask for you all, we have folks organizing on the suburban side of our district for the first time. We've got Morton Grove Pride, Niles Pride, Skokie Pride. Communities that have not always felt supported, they are coming out, they are showing support, they're partnering with our libraries, they're doing public events, and part of what our council has been working to do is how do we connect the suburban side to so many of the resources and lessons and leaders here on the city side. So we'd love to be a bridge. If that's something you're willing to do with our folks on the suburban side, please reach out. We'd love to have you join because I think, as we try to build this more inclusive community, making sure that we're connected, particularly across the city and the suburbs, and that those that are sticking their necks out and doing this work for the first time feel the support and love from those of you who've been doing it for a long time. So thank you for all that you do, and look forward to continuing to work with everybody.
And lastly, I would like to turn it over to the iconic Commissioner Precious Bailey.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's an honor to be here for Senator Simmons' annual Pride Press Conference. What a joyful and powerful way to round out this month of celebration, reflection, and action. For me, Pride is so much more than a party. It is a protest, a prayer, and a promise. We must remember that night of June 28, 1969, when trans women of color like Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera led the uprising at the Stonewall Inn. Joined with the beatnik street children, they were tired of hiding, tired of the harassment, and they sparked the movement that makes it possible for so many of us to live today out and proud, standing in our truth. As someone who grew up being told who I shouldn't be, what I shouldn't say, who I shouldn't love, how I shouldn't show up, I stand here so proud to be the first Black trans woman ever elected to public office in Cook County. That's not just my story. It is our story of collective progress. And that progress is possible because of leaders like Senator Simmons. From championing the Gender Affirming Healthcare Protection Act to expanding safeguards for LGBTQ youth and families. Senator Simmons has ensured our community is not just seen, but protected. Your leadership is a model for what it means to legislate with both courage and compassion in an extremely difficult environment. Thank you, Senator. This week, we were reminded of what's at stake. The Trump administration announced it will eliminate option 3, the LGBTQ youth suicide hotline option on 988. Let that sink in. At a time when so many young people are reaching out for help, they are choosing cruelty over care. We are living in dire times, and it's up to all of us to lead with love, action, and to give more capacity. Because when people, especially young people, see themselves reflected in schools, in art, and government, they say, I can be that too. That's why I often say that representation, it's not only symbolic, but it is a lifeline. So let me be clear. We will not go back. We will not be erased. And we will never stop fighting for a world where all of us can thrive and lead with love and our lives full of dignity. And as we take the streets this weekend, know this. Our symbolic parade is not just a celebration. It is a declaration that we will never go back into the shadows of history, ever. Thank you. Happy Pride.
And kicking that off, now we may start our safety discussions. Would Chicago Therapy Collective and Rayo Clinic please come up to the front so we may start our discussion on mental health?
I'll wait for my colleague Silas to come on up. Yes, applause for Silas for making it up. Silas is such an incredible LGBTQ advocate and worker that they literally broke their ankle on the way to the Trans Femicide Working Group Ordinance at Task Force 2 weeks ago. So thank you so much, Senator Simmons, Gabby, Heather, Gerber, Hart, for welcoming us today. Thank you to our fellow LGBTQ nonprofits, our fellow mental health nonprofits. It's so important that we are not only talking about the state, yes, welcome Mike, the state of safety in our communities, but specifically about mental health. I also want to shout out that I see a number of our community leaders in the audience in our Edgewater, Andersonville neighborhood. Hi, Paul Rufino. I think I saw Laura here earlier. It really takes all of us. It's a community effort to support LGBTQ mental health and well-being. So today I want to emphasize the mental health aspect of our services. For the last 3 years, my colleague Silas from Chicago Therapy Collective has been introducing our work and really focusing on what we do outside of mental health. But with what's happening right now, it feels really critical to come full circle back to talking about mental health and also highlight some of the critical areas that we need to see our leaders continue supporting us, our representatives continue supporting access to LGBTQ healthcare, access to LGBTQ mental health care. So I want to talk and I want to think about bolder and braver solutions. Mike, I'm reminded of something that you said during our Trans Day of Visibility town hall, which was challenging all of us to actually dream. Like, what is it that we want to see? And let's go for that. at a time when we're facing so many barriers, we really run the risk of overly focusing on the barriers and the obstacles, and we lose sight of what is it that we're going for. So there are brilliant people in the room today. Please stay connected to what you're going for, what your organizations are going for. Let's create that. So I think I didn't even introduce myself. My name is Iggy Ladin. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm the executive director of Chicago Therapy Collective. I'm an LGBTQ affirming therapist. I work with trans youth. Though I predominantly work with LGBTQ adults, I do work with trans youth too, and I've been thinking about them so much these last few months. I also am a non-binary parent to a beautiful 2-year-old. And there's so many, again, ways that our rights are being threatened. And I feel really grateful that we're welcome here today to have this conversation and help shape the vision of what happens next and share our services. Chicago Therapy Collective, we believe firmly in both providing LGBTQ healthcare, mental health care, but also that we need to address systemic change. And my colleague Silas specifically will be talking more about the systemic change front. But what I want to highlight, and I really had to reduce my comments to keep it to 5 minutes, right? Is that for LGBTQ people in general and for LGBTQ youth, safety is not just about decreasing policing, increasing policing, trying to stop hate crimes. It really is about our visibility in the world. It's about having affirming school districts and teachers, affirming LGBTQ curriculum. It's about having access to literature where our lives and our identities are reflected. It's about having career opportunities presented to us and affirming employers and workplaces that are ready to welcome and receive trans people, queer people. So our approach to mental health is not just in the therapy office, but we also do a lot of work in the community with education and advocacy. Within our LGBTQ work, we also curate really intentional referrals. So we have a limited team. Our team is small, but what we do have is an LGBTQ affirming therapist network that we refer folks to try to bridge the gap beyond Psychology Today, because we know with Psychology Today, there's a lot of therapists who are checking LGBTQ affirming, trans competent, but we have gotten feedback that is often not the case. People are just checking that. So we have a vetted list of therapists that we refer to, and I specifically want to invite any trans youth in the audience today to reach out to me, our team. I also want to shout out our team. Albie Gutierrez waving her hand. She's one of our therapists, bilingual therapists. KJ Whitehead is a staff member at CTC too. Hi, KJ. But reach out to us directly today if you need support, if you have a friend that needs support. Specifically yesterday, our staff reached out to therapists to confirm that they have openings for trans youth. So I really mean it, that access and that support is there. With that said, to bring us back to the bigger picture, what is it that we need to do? We have a significant behavioral health provider shortage, not only in Illinois, but across the country. And how is it that we are going to fill this shortage? I know our representatives have been working hard to increase equity of mental health services for clients who are trying to access services, and also increasing equity for healthcare providers on the payment front. Therapists haven't received a raise, and I think it's since like 1985. Insurance reimbursement rates have not gone up for therapists. But with recent legislation that has passed, therapists are seeing their first raise in decades. And it's not just by cents, it's actually by like $15 on an hour, which is really significant. And it's these kinds of structural barriers that prevent therapists from entering the workforce in the first place. We also want to see more support and scholarships available for LGBTQ therapists, especially LGBTQ therapists of color, so that we know therapists are reflecting the community members who are needing the most support. So what are the incentives, scholarships, that we can start to provide so that folks are entering the profession and that they're supported once they're in the profession, right? I'm also just personally a big believer in holistic healing, and I don't believe that therapy is the only answer. As Mike was saying, as a youth, like looking to literature as a space for healing and affirmation and seeing ourselves reflected. I feel like my outfit shows this today, but this past weekend I did a Qigong intensive, and that was amazing, folks, that we have to expand our idea of mental health care beyond traditional behavioral health services to include more holistic care models. I would love to see that start to be funded. And also we need to expand our ideas of who is an expert. I'm excited to be here with Rio today because something that they bring and we bring to our work too is the belief that clients are the experts of their own experience and healing journeys. And so what would it look like if we expanded more peer-led models for healing? I love that Illinois has now funded peer positions so that peer workers can be a part of the mental health solution, but still we could be doing more. 50% of trans youth who are reaching out for therapy right now are not finding a therapist, let alone an affirming therapist. And peer workers are pretty special because that lived experience bridges the gap that a lot of therapists don't have if they haven't had the cultural competency training. So I'm going to cap it at that, but you can probably tell I can go on and pass it off to my colleague Silas to share a little bit more about our work outside of the therapy office.
I just want to be respectful of time and just kind of do a really quick summary. Our work takes us outside of the therapy office. We have rich lives outside of that 1 hour a week. So our work brings us into the halls of the state capitol, advocating for different legislation, including the Equality for Every Families Act. We are working to fight against the weaponization of mental health diagnoses as a way to oppress the LGBTQ community. We are out of the therapy office into the streets. We are working with local businesses to make sure that their hiring practices are trans inclusive, that we provide free training through our Hire Trans Now program. And we are out of the therapy office into the community. We offer community activations and art exhibitions throughout the year, including Trans Day of Remembrance and Visibility. And we just really want to thank you all for being here and giving us the opportunity to share a bit about our work.
Hi, thank you so much, Senator Simmons. Thank you, CTC, thank you, Iggy and Silas, for being up here with us together. My name is Lauren Hirsch. I'm a psychotherapist and I'm a co-founder of Rio Counseling and Community Co-op, a queer, female-led community mental health center based in Westridge. We're new, we're about 2 years old. And at Rio, I wear a lot of hats. I'm a service provider. I'm involved in pretty much every aspect of our administrative work and our program development, and also involved in quite a bit of mental health activism and advocacy here in Chicago. Rio serves people across the mental health continuum through individual, couples, family, and group therapy. We serve adults, we serve children, we serve youth. And we also offer case management and community support. Community support can look like pretty much anything you can imagine that would help you become connected to more activities and events in your community, which is especially important today when for so many folks, for so many trans folks, especially and LGBTQ folks in our community, it takes a tremendous amount of courage to get up and be alive in a scary world. And lastly, we offer peer support, like he was talking about. Peer support means support from people who have been through it themselves, people who can say, I understand what you're going through because I've been there too. And I'm here to be with you, to sit in the shadows with you, to grieve, to process, to get through it. And my passion, the thing that I think I'm most excited about when it comes to RIO is what we call our peer space. Our peer space is a collaborative, healing, expressive space, and it is co-created by clients and staff alike. We work together as a team to design workshops, events, and community offerings rooted in joy, in creativity, connection, and mutual aid, like our upcoming peer-led art nights, where we imagine a world free from oppression, a world where people can truly be themselves. Can you imagine that? A world where you're truly allowed to be as you are. That's the world we're trying to build. RIO is more than a mental health clinic. We're a community of people healing together, people growing together, reconnecting with our purpose, and imagining a world that can hold us all. And we're doing all of this without coercion. This is fundamental to our work at RIO, is that we provide services at RIO free from coercion. Participation in our services is always by choice. If you come to RIO, if you are at RIO to engage in services, to say hi and to walk out, that is your choice. We'll never force anybody to do anything at RIO that they do not want to do. It's their healing, it's their way. This is not just a philosophical stance, it's a practical and urgent necessity, especially today in this moment, especially for LGBTQ populations, for trans folks. As a queer person myself, and as someone who works in a space where most of our staff identify as queer, trans, disabled, low income, BIPOC, non-binary, and where many of our clients do too, I can tell you with certainty that consent and safety in mental health care are not just ideals, they are essential. And this is especially critical right now when we're seeing a rise in coercive care, assertive community treatment. Assertive community treatment teams are a lovely assisted outpatient treatment. I always mix up the acronym, that's AOT. Something to be mindful of is a coercive outpatient care model that we're seeing a rise of in the state of Illinois. So it's something that we're really keeping an eye on at RIO. The truth is, too many LGBTQ plus folks have been harmed by coercive care in mental health settings. Folks have been pathologized, silenced, labeled, locked up, told we need to fix ourselves. At RIO, we believe the opposite. We believe you are the expert on your own life. We believe that all symptoms carry meaning. We believe that only you can define what that meaning is, that you define your identity, your healing, and your purpose. Our job is to create a space safe enough for you to unfold, and we do that because the need is urgent. LGBTQ plus individuals are twice as likely to experience a mental health condition, while transgender and non-binary youth report significantly higher rates of suicidal ideation, self-harm, and trauma-related symptoms. And despite these elevated needs, many do not receive care. Not only is there a behavioral health workforce shortage, which we know about, there's also a lack of gender-affirming clinicians, of culturally competent clinicians, of clinicians who are pledging to keep folks safe and pledging to provide care that is non-coercive. Even worse, many who do access care report experiences of harm, re-traumatization, or coercion. Forced hospitalization in particular is a site of profound danger for many in our community. Psychiatric holds can result in financial devastation, especially for uninsured or underinsured trans folks. Untold psychic harm can be caused by forced hospitalization. We see increased mortality rates post-discharge and increased substance use post-discharge. LGBTQIA plus people, particularly those who are racialized, disabled, or low income, are more likely to be subject to involuntary treatment and forced hospitalization. And research has found that involuntary hospitalization is often less helpful for trans individuals who are suicidal, leaving them often feeling re-traumatized and unseen. We cannot separate this reality from our history. LGBTQIA plus communities have long been targeted by systems of control. From conversion therapy to eugenics, institutionalization to criminalization. The legacy of medical abuse runs deep, and it lives on in mistrust, in trauma, and in the fight for care that is truly affirming. That's why RIO exists. We are actively positioned away from forced hospitalization and toward community care, collective recovery, and the belief that crisis is not pathology, it's communication. It's a signal that something needs tending to, and it deserves a response rooted in dignity, not domination. At RIO, we welcome the crisis. I'm gonna wrap it up here, but please check us out. You can go to our website, it's www.riocoop.org, and follow us on Instagram. We're working with CTC to create more community spaces and peer-run opportunities and ways to get involved and engage and to take healing into our own hands.
Thank you so much. Can I have one more round of applause for our amazing panelists? Thank you. And now I would like to welcome AIDS Foundation Chicago and TPAN to move on to our next panel on physical health. If you would like to go down the line and introduce yourselves and who you're with.
Sure. Can you all hear me? Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Timothy Jackson, pronouns he, him, Senior Director of Policy and Advocacy for AIDS Foundation Chicago.
Can you hear me? I'm Lorraine Hayes. I'm the Senior Director of Philanthropy and Community Engagement for Vibant Health at TPAN.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jake, he, him, his, and I am a staff pharmacist at Vibant Health.
So I've been at TPAN, now Vibant Health at TPAN for 16 years. And I never thought I would be here as long as I have been. I came as a therapist after finishing my master's degree program, but stayed because I truly fell in love with the work in the community. We've been around and serving the LGBTQ plus community for almost 40 years, 37 years. We started when a group of individuals who were living with HIV or loved someone who was living with HIV and didn't know anywhere to turn, didn't know where to get the information, didn't know where to find support. And from that living room gathering over a few months, we grew into an organization that has now evolved into an HIV health center. And what that means is that we offer it now, as a part of Vibant Health, we merged with Vibant Health a couple of years ago, integrated care. And integrated care at TPAN doesn't simply mean co-located care, because there's a difference. You can go to many health centers or health providers throughout the city where they have multiple services on site, but we knew that wasn't enough. You know, we know our community. We need to serve our community in a way where our pharmacist is walking over to the food pantry to talk about specific diets that people should consider in terms of their food. Our doctors are walking over to the case managers to have daily case consultations about the needs of the people that we serve. Our case managers are talking to the people in our food pantry to talk about the need and how we can, meet the immediate need, but also search for long-term solutions. So that's really what we offer in our community. And as a part of that, we also really pay attention to the specific needs and how we need to shape our work in order to best meet those needs. A few years ago, we opened up the Tea Room, which is a youth drop-in center that we created, no funding whatsoever, but there was a need. And it was for people, LGBTQ plus communities, 18 to 29. And we specifically made it a little bit more of a wider range because most programs that serve our population, they age out at 24. I have a 22-year-old son. He's nowhere ready to fly, he's a long way to go. And so we saw that in our community, we saw that people were being kicked out of these programs and they weren't quite ready. And because we weren't restricted to that federal funding, we shaped that program to be what we knew for it to be. So right now, we usually had a part-time person in that space. We've actually invested to make it a full-time position so that we can have that space be open longer and more hours. But not only that, we're investing more money into that space so that it can be more than what it was. That we can help to make sure that those people who are coming into that space, many of them are unstably housed, couch surfing, don't have a social support system, can build community not only with each other and with us, of course, but also figure out how we can integrate them into other services.
We have behavioral health services. We offer psychiatry. We have a food pantry. We have an on-site pharmacy at this point. We have a full medical clinic where we not only serve people impacted by HIV, but anyone who is in our community can come in and get care. I was just telling Jake, who's fairly new with us, that what we're starting to roll out next year is a medication assistance fund. And what that means is that we're all about figuring out what barriers we need to remove so people can get the support and the help that they need and how we can address that. We're starting a medication assistance fund next year, excuse me, where if someone comes in and they need medication, we're not turning them away. That's against who we are, that's against who T-PAN has always been, and that's against who we are even now that we're a part of Vibin Health, that we are able to meet those needs at the time of service. So me, as the philanthropy and community engagement person, I'm tasked with making sure that I'm in settings like this where I can share what we do. T-PAN has always been that little engine that could in the community. We've always been there, small but mighty. But we haven't always been the best about putting ourselves in the forefront so people can truly understand the resource that we're here to offer. So I'm just so grateful to be here and to be able to speak to you all and just share a little bit about what we do. I will leave my card. Gabby has my card. If anyone wants to learn more about our services, learn more about how you can either support or just show up. We also take a lot of pride in offering community programs. We constantly offer community workshops on topics that are not driven by what we think the community needs, but we ask the community that we serve, what do you want to learn about? What resources can we help support you? Who can we bring in our space? We're really big on collaboration because we know that to meet the full needs, no organization can do it all. And we should not even attempt to do it all. We should collaborate with people in our space, like we just heard from a couple of wonderful behavioral health organizations. You all are the experts in that space. Or we have people that we give behavioral health services to, but we are incapable of serving them all. So I was really pleased to hear about some of the amazing work that you all are doing, because I'm definitely going to be calling you. And so that we can start to work together and address many of the needs that we see. Thank you.
Yes, thank you all so much for allowing me to spend some time with you all today to talk about AIDS Foundation Chicago and the work that we've been doing for about 4 decades. Our work is really rooted in community and is centered at the intersection of ending the HIV epidemic and ending homelessness. And so you can't, when we talk about physical health, which is kind of, I think what this panel is about, is understanding and really acknowledging that housing is healthcare. That if you don't have housing, you don't have anything. We can provide all of the PrEP or the treatment for people living with and vulnerable to HIV, but if they don't have somewhere to lay their head in the evening, none of that matters. And so that is the reason why we are so hell-bent on the work that we do around not only ending the HIV epidemic, but ending the epidemic of homelessness. Understanding that housing is a critical tool to end the HIV epidemic. It leads to better health outcomes. And so again, it makes good sense. And also understanding that it allows us to be able to meet, this stat just kind of stands out to me every time I say it. The 47% of people living with HIV in Illinois with the unmet need for shelter or housing assistance. So we understand there's 47% of people living with HIV in this state that have a need for housing. And so that is really our goal, to make sure that there's no one, whether they're living with HIV or not, they're vulnerable to HIV, they have everything that they need in order to be able to live a healthy life. And so part of that is our work with our friends over at the Center on Halstead to coordinate the HIV Resource Hub. It is really a one-stop shop for case management, for housing assistance, for utility assistance, for HIV testing and PrEP access. It is literally a one-stop shop for people living with and vulnerable to HIV to get all of the care that they need and deserve. And so when I was preparing for this, came across this stat. In 2022 alone, the HIV Resource Hub dispensed a total of over $400,000 in payments in emergency eviction prevention payments, utility payments, and other financial assistance to over 550 individuals. And so just think about that. That's the impact of what the HIV Resource Hub has been. And funny story, it was actually started on Valentine's Day, if I'm not mistaken, in 2020, so a month before the pandemic. And so you can understand how, important this program has been and continues to be. Another thing that AFC is proud to do is we, along with Illinois and Chicago Departments of Public Health, coordinate the state's plan to end the HIV epidemic, Getting to Zero Illinois. We released the second iteration of the plan last June with 3 main pathways. 1 is based on quality of life. 2 is prevent and diagnose. And then 3 is treat. We heard from community that they didn't see themselves represented in the first iteration of the plan. So we retooled it, made sure that we centered them in that plan. And so we can reach our goals by 2030. And then finally, I would be remiss if I did not talk about this. Policy and advocacy, our network, making sure that we push back at every instance where we see our rights and things being done to our communities that we serve, specifically the Black, the Latinx, and LGBTQ communities already disproportionately impacted by HIV and homelessness. And so we have a number of campaigns on our mobile action network where within about 5 minutes you can reach your member of Congress to tell them to save Medicaid, save HOPWA, which is a federal program that provides housing for people living with HIV, as well as protect HIV funding in the federal budget. And so if you are not signed up for the Mobile Action Network, all you have to do is text AFC to 40649, and you will get signed up and be able to reach your member of Congress. So I will stop there.
I would be remiss if I didn't give my colleague Jake a few minutes to say a few things about his role at Vitamin Health TV.
Thank you, I appreciate that. One of the things I want to talk about is something that Lorraine and Timothy already mentioned, which is patient advocacy. As a pharmacist, I've worked in a variety of settings where patient advocacy is nowhere near the top of the priority list, and certainly where providing a safe space for our LGBTQ+ community is even farther down that list. So she mentioned I'm relatively new, and it's so energizing and refreshing to work in a place where we're centered around patient advocacy. Our pharmacy is kind of unique compared to other pharmacies where we get to work collaboratively with every aspect of our team. We get to work with our providers, we get to work with case management, we get to work with our legal team, our patient service representatives. So it's really good to kind of have that collaborative effort and that teamwork to achieve our ultimate patient goals. And one of the things that we really try to do in pharmacy, she already mentioned we are developing a fund to provide medications for people who can't afford them in the future, which is very exciting. We also have to try and access and overcome the barriers to a lot of these HIV drugs that, let's face it, are very expensive. So one of the things that I try to do as a pharmacist, that we try to do on our pharmacy team, is identify those barriers and work with our patients on an individual level to get them the medication that they need. So I really enjoy that aspect of it, as well as all the profits from our pharmacy go directly back into our healthcare system. They go straight back into Vibrant Health, straight back into TPAN, which then gets invested back into our community. So it's really a good system to invest into our community and provide the highest quality patient care that we can.
Thank you all so much. Can we give another round of applause for the panels that spoke with us today? And just talking about, this web of community-based support that we all have. I want to make sure that people both in the room and those that are watching hear about these resources, because I can promise you that somewhere within a half mile now of here, there's somebody right now that needs access to one of the services that these organizations are providing, whether we're talking about culturally competent mental health care, whether we're talking about access to PrEP medications, whether we're talking about advocacy for patients, is something that is really important and I think it's lost in the discussions, the policy discussions, is we often talk about, we often talk about policy, we often talk about programs, but I don't often hear my colleagues in the General Assembly talking about the people that rely on these programs and what their actual situations are, right, before they engage with services and after. And that's something that is very important to me. So I am gratitude for you all for not just for the work that you do in the community, but just for making time to be here today, spending time with people in the community to commemorate and reflect on Pride, and to really think about the times that we're living in. I appreciated Iggy earlier when you talked about, I think it was a couple of months ago when we had a community convening, and I had talked about how so many people talk about the Trump administration is doing this, and the Trump administration is doing that. And it's real. You know, when the Supreme Court upheld the decision to ban gender-affirming care in Tennessee on June 18th, I literally threw my laptop across the room. I felt like I had held in so much anger and frustration for so many months, and that really was the thing that made me lose it. And the reality is that there's going to be something else. It could happen before the end of the week. It could happen over the July 4th week. It could happen, and it will happen. There will be something else in July that makes our jaws drop. And so it is really important right now, I think, for us to dream. And if no one else will do it, I will. Because we have come too far. LGBTQIA plus people in queer communities have come too far to wave the flag and to be stunned and paralyzed. My ancestors, both straight and queer, by the way, sacrificed way too much for me to sit here and give up hope. And I'm not a hope dope person. I'm really not. I don't believe in giving people false illusions. I believe in educating people because I think people are smarter in our communities than we give them credit for. Those patients that navigate our systems are smarter than we give them credit for. The skepticism that people have in our communities is well-founded. And so if we as leaders can dream about what we want to take out of the chaos right now and say to ourselves, what do we actually want the next 5 and 10 years to look like? What do we want queer youth to matriculate into as young adults in 5 or 10 years? Some of you are parents of queer youth. I'm an older brother of a queer youth. I am a queer legislator. I am the grandson of a queer grandmother. I have everything at stake in this fight right now. Everything, literally my whole life. And so as your state senator, and more importantly, as your sibling and friend, I just ask you to think about that as you leave here today. Think about, what do you want our society to look like in the next 20 years? And what reality do you want our queer youth to grow into adults into, right? I'll tell you share some of mine, just so you know I'm not just asking you to go on a blind mission. I have a dream that we have radically inclusive schools for LGBTQ youth. Radically inclusive schools. Because I want LGBTQ youth to have what I didn't have and what some of you here didn't have, where we can go into our English coursework in high school and read books by queer authors, and it just be the thing. It's not the exception, it's not a DEI initiative. It is the thing, it is the mainstream thing. Because we are in the community, we're not exceptional. We're all over our society. You know, my other dream that I have is a society where queer people are represented in all spaces, right? We're the doctors, right? If somebody is looking, as I was in my early 20s, for an LGBTQIA doctor, it's not a hard task. They are there in the clinics, and you can tell somebody, I need somebody who understands my unique life experiences, and you will get a physician or a clinician that will understand it, and you won't have to explain yourself all the time, because we as queer people are constantly having to explain ourselves to people. We have to make the decision every day to come out. When people ask me about my coming out story, I'm like, well, do you want the 1998 version or the 9:58 a.m. version this morning, right? It's something I have to do every day, and I'm proud to do it. And what I would leave you all with is that I always share this with people, that I think the greatest gift that the universe gave me as a human being is my queer identity. That is the greatest gift that I have. I couldn't imagine being alive and in my body not as a gay black man who is tall and who is you know, a little eccentric and who's nerdy. I'm proud of that, and that my gay identity is the foundation for all of it. And so I hope that you all here that are queer and that are allies are just as proud of who you are. And we'll let people celebrate you in the days ahead, and not just in June, but every single month of the year. That's what I would ask you. So thank you so much. And Gabby, can I ask, did I leave anything out? Because I ad-libbed a little bit.
Hello, can everyone hear you? Okay, great. No, you did great.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, and thanks again to Gerber Hart for hosting us again this year.
If you all could go around and introduce yourselves.
Hi everyone, my name is Asher McMaher, my pronouns are they, them, and I know most people here see me all the time as the Executive Director of Trans Up Front, but today I'm representing Brave Space Alliance as their Senior Advisor of Development and Regional Strategy.
Hello. Hi, everybody. I am Dr. Luke Romesberg, and I am here representing Center on Halstead. I'm the Senior Director of Youth Programming there, and I've been there for about 4 years now. I'm going to talk about Lavender Hill.
If you guys could touch base specifically on the work that you guys do for LGBT youth and how you create safe spaces, as well as the programs that you have, the floor is yours.
So I come here today not only as a community leader, but also as a parent of a trans youth. I am a trans person. I have a 13-year-old trans daughter, and at Brave Space Alliance that serves so many marginalized identities, including those of the BIPOC community, their legacy has been creating safe spaces, whether it's within housing and food insecurity, mental health support, medical support, and most recently just launched an on-site youth program for ages 13 to 17 to find community. Because we know right now within the current political climate, our youth need each other. And we also know that if we build supports, we are able to help with suicide ideation, with so many different aspects. You know, growing up, I grew up in the foster system as a queer youth. I know firsthand what it's like to be in households where you're not affirmed in who you are. And we know it starts at home, but sometimes home is not the place that is going to lift you up. So creating those spaces, whether it's within Brave Space, it's with Center on Halstead, it's with CTC, it's with Trans Up Front, we help find spaces for them to find their own community. You know, with Brave Space, they've done an incredible amount to help people find their family. And we know here that we're not just a community, we are family, and we have to value our youth as we do it. So I'm going to pass on to Luke.
Hi again. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of our youth programming at Center, but I also want to just kind of address a little bit of, we have a shift at Center over the past year. We have a new leadership. We have a new CEO named Julie Robinson. Center, it's no secret that there's a history with Center about being located on the north side and who we serve and who we have served in the past. So there's been a shift at Center and how we are navigating the world, who we are serving and how we're serving folks. Alongside Precious Brady Davis, who is our Chief Strategy Officer as well, who spoke earlier today. It's been just a shift in leadership at Center. So with that, we have a number of youth programs that we offer weekly. We have our Lavender Living program, we have our Drop-In program, we have our Trans Youth group, and we have our To Be Human group. This is not also counting our one-off events, our special events. Every year we throw a Youth and Family Action Summit. We had the Youth Pride Space at the Pride Fest this past weekend, whenever it was 95 degrees. And we were outside, but we are there all the time. But to talk a little bit, and also if you want more information about those programs, I won't go into details because there's a lot of them, but you can definitely find more information on the website. But when it comes to creating a safe space, there's a few, I think, just like instrumental things that are not very difficult to really consider. You know, it's making sure that the youth see themselves in the staff, making sure that the space reflects them, that they have input on the programming, input on the walls. We have, for example, like an icon wall of queer icons. The youth picked all of them themselves. So it's making sure that they have a say in who you're bringing to them, what agencies you're bringing in, and ultimately, that helps build rapport, that helps them open up more, feel more comfortable, and whenever that happens, that's when you really see the changes and the magic that can be made, the impact that can be made on these lives. That's all I got. Yeah.
Well, I guess, guys, that this is actually it. Could we have a round of applause for our panel?
So since I prematurely concluded our program, I'm actually going to extend it by just a couple minutes here. And I wanted to ask if you could talk a little bit about Trans Up Front and how it came to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the executive director of Trans Up Front Illinois, and our organization, I feel like everyone thought kind of exploded out of nowhere. And that's actually not true. I've been doing this work for 10 years. In the background, I've worked with Howard Brown. I've worked with Equality. I've worked with so many organizations. In the background, I actually did the first fundraisers for Brave Space Alliance when they were the Trans Liberation Collective. And so those who started this organization have been in the background uplifting communities. And so earlier this year, when Lurie Children's Hospital started rolling back care, what a lot of people don't know is I actually did the fundraiser for Lurie to get their new building. And so for our family, our 13-year-old daughter lost her appointment to get her blocker removed in that moment. And we brought our families together. My 13-year-old daughter is a force of nature herself. She's a trans person. She was the youngest out trans person to walk in New York Fashion Week. She was named the youngest trans activist by Governor Pritzker when she was 7. And she's also the youngest hate crime victim in Cook County at 4.5, having her arm broken, being forced into clothing she doesn't identify with. And I've been a foster parent for 13 years, and I have 5 kids and 2 grandkids because of the work that we do within the foster system. And so we know firsthand as we made this organization how important it is to uplift our trans youth. And so when we started like Pride was, with a riot. We started with protests. We started with gathering people. So on February 14th, we had 700 people stand in the snow with us with 6 days notice. On March 30th, we had 7,000 people hit the streets with us for Trans Day of Visibility. But that wasn't enough. So we continued. We gathered supports, incredible individuals throughout the state, to make sure that no matter where you are, you have someone to help lift you up, to get you support. We started coalitions. We have 60 organizations signed on to our coalition, including CTC, including AIDS Foundation, including so many others that come together to provide support. We're 100% volunteer. We're all about resources. We go into our coalition and say, we have a family who desperately needs this. Who can we send them to? Everything is about leading with community first and ego last. Right now, the administration has an attack on our youth. Our youth are the future. As Precious said earlier, we have our ancestors who paved the way for us. It is now our responsibility to pave the way for our youth so that one day they can do it for the next generation. We are losing trans youth at a rapid rate, and we can't lose another one. We get loss of trans youth through young adults reported to our organization, and we lead that way. We lead in the way in the back of our head of knowing how many we've lost this year in a sanctuary state. We can't rely on being a sanctuary status. We have to show up. Just like we showed up as the representative for Lenny's office outside of drag time or drag story time, right? We had 200 people stand and have a dance party on the sidewalk. And it's all about supporting our children. They need us and we need them. And so as we do this work, we're serving families across the state and anyone who comes into the state to access care. We have so many neighboring states that have lost their access, that need us desperately. And so we're there for them. And everything we do is without financial barriers, meaning we charge nothing to these families. We right now are serving about 900 individuals, trans individuals between the ages of 4 and 25, who either live here or come into the state to access care. And we do that with rubbing pennies together. And we do it from a place of support and love, and every one of us hold full-time jobs on top of that. Every person who works at Trans Up Front does not get paid, and we do it because they need us and we need them for the future.
I really like the idea of dance parties for our young trans youth, like just having whole different ways of of creative protest is something that I think is part of the dream that I have, and I think a lot of people in our community have. And so I also just wanted to really underscore that I thought that was beautiful, that the way that went down and how it happened. And I expect that we'll see more demonstrations like that this summer. I want to be a part of them. I want to lead on some of this. I want to be in the streets. And I hope that, everyone that's here will be just as imaginative in some of the things that we need to do to show the force of our community and the power of our community and the vision for our community. If you'll just indulge me for a couple more minutes, can I also ask you to talk a little bit about Lavender Living? Okay.
So Lavender Living, it runs every Wednesday. It's from 6 to 8, and it's for 18 to 24 years old. It's primarily trans, non-binary, gender expansive folks who come there. We do a dinner service. We also bring in speakers. We bring in workshops. There's like sex ed, art workshops, writing workshops. It's really a great community. We average about 25 to 30 people every Wednesday, and it's just growing. We've seen our numbers growing, and we know why that is. Of course, the need is there. The need is heightened more than ever. So it's a great thing that people are reaching out and coming to attend, but it's sad that we need these things. But anyway, Lavender Living, if you were to arrive there, you would see a friendly, colorful space. You would see staff that are reflected in who you are, and just a very welcoming social space for young people to feel themselves, be safe, and enjoy each other's company, and also learn some things about themselves or the world, how they can be more active in their community. It's really a plethora. We try to hit as much as we can. And I also want to mention our drop-in program too, which occurs on Wednesdays as well from 10 to 1. And that's more of a basic needs focused program. So it's breakfast, lunch, and then we bring in folks to help assist with housing, legal, health, and then we can also refer out to other programs at Center on Halstead, like our behavioral health program, HIV and testing. So it's pretty expansive. We try to make sure all of our programs kind of connect with each other in some way, so that we also have programs for folks who are under the age of 18. And as I mentioned, our trans youth group, our To Be Human group, our after school hangs. And eventually the idea is that those folks can then, whenever they age up into the 18, they can just kind of morph into the other programs. And we're soon to be starting a Big Siblings program to address the barrier of whenever folks turn 25, there's often a lack of services. I believe it was mentioned earlier today too. So we're starting a Big Siblings program for folks whenever they age out of the program, that they can still have case management, they can still have connection to the community, and they're not kind of left hanging.
Okay, so we're past time, so I'll wrap us up. And thank you so much again for coming.